quite possibly some of why so many people are so sick right now. The triple threat, right? It's SARS-CoV-2 and flu and RSV. Like, well, okay, but why are so many people so susceptible this year, right? Because we just spent a long time in many places for many people to varying degrees, in social isolation, wearing masks, basically preventing ourselves from being exposed at low level to things that kept our immune systems in the process of sort of priming themselves.
So I hear explanations like this. They are plausible. I am not certain that they are true. They could well be. I want to be a little bit cautious about it.
It feels related to me to the hygiene hypothesis, right? The hygiene hypothesis, which is that we are keeping our homes, we are clearing our homes of all possible, bacteria and other pathogens, and children raised in such homes end up with a higher level of allergies and susceptibility to things like the common cold. And so the hygiene hypothesis does not specify a mechanism, but it feels like it goes in exactly the same direction. So I feel like the burden of that's not true. The fact that we forced everyone to socially isolate and wear masks and such for years is not contributing to a higher responsiveness to low-level and not so low-level viruses and other pathogens now. I think the burden of proof of that is on the people who are saying it's not.
So I think there are multiple things that may be contributing to the same pattern, or at least are viable hypotheses. Mm-hmm. What you and I would call confounds and what kids today and doctors call confounders. But anyway, so to put a couple of them on the hygiene hypothesis and the version of it that would apply to this, I think is almost certain to be true during development. In other words, mm-hmm. the immune system during development gets exposures that are useful. The question of whether or not adults are getting sick with these things because of a couple of years of increased isolation, certainly plausible that there is a kind of censusing of the pathogen environment in which you're basically low-level vaccinating yourself. And I've heard doctors talk about this. Zach's pediatrician, when he was a baby, used to talk about...
His good pediatrician.
His good pediatrician, I think his name may have been Peterson, but... in any case, he used to talk about the fact that he didn't get sick, and he attributed to that.
The doctor. The pediatrician didn't get sick, even though he was coming every day into a practice with a lot of young sick kids.
Right, and what he thought was going on, right or wrong, was that he was being exposed to all, the kids are all snotting up his office, and he's exposed to this stuff, and basically he's constantly up to date on the library of what's out there, mm-hmm. right? So that's possible. Other things that are possible is that there's evolution on the pathogen front. So we had a year with almost no flu, right? Now, maybe that's bullshit. Maybe flu ended up disguised as COVID because the powers that be wanted to count it that way. But if we take the lack of flu at face value, mm-hmm. I think it's pretty clear why that would have happened, right? We did something that interrupted our normal ecology, which interrupted its ecology, which is suddenly the mechanism that it uses to infect people is transmit. Broken because mm-hmm. doesn't have access to airplanes and, indoor restaurants and all of the stuff that we weren't doing. And so...
Well, I mean, the obvious prediction here, of course, is that in places that stopped the lockdowns early, that didn't have the social isolation and closed the schools and such, there won't be as much of a surge right now in respiratory viruses.
Probably, except that we are all intermingling. Yeah. Exactly. And so, I do wonder if you take a pathogen and you suddenly accidentally get wise to blocking it by, doing some draconian antisocial distancing, whatever it is, and the pathogen responds by turning up its infectivity, right? Because now it has to jump gaps mm-hmm, that it didn't have to jump before, that suddenly at the point you stop doing that could unleash a surge.
Right. But, so either way, we created an environment that might produce conditions to encourage the evolution of virulence.
Right. And at the same time, what did we do with these so-called vaccines is we intervened in a complex system that nobody knows enough about to have done this. And we did so in a way that is now obviously dumb. And in a way that is now, we are seeing evidence of weird consequences that nobody predicted, as far as I know, like IgG4, the attenuation signal, suddenly rising in people who have been multiply boosted. And the question is, well, that does a couple of things. That, A, causes a suppression of immunity for the thing for which these folks were, or potentially causes a suppression of immunity in the case of the pathogen for which they were boosted. But it also provides a loophole in the immune system that other pathogens can find their way
It's
through.
not specific. It's just, it causes an overall dampening.
Well, it's like if you were running a military operation.
Which I'm not.
No, thank you. But if you were,
I think I could do okay. I mean, I'd want to study in advance.
Let's put it this
I want to
way.
talk to a lot of good people, but we know some of those people.
The T's would be crossed, the I's would be dotted. That
Oh,
probably.
come on. That sucks.
I was
That
about.
is not what I do.
I was about to say, before I was so rudely interrupted, I was about to say that would likely result in a great decrease in friendly fire incidents. Okay? Now, what I was going to suggest is a crude mechanism. I see. A crude mechanism for preventing friendly fire incidents that presumably militaries use is some sort of a, hey, I'm a friendly transponder signal, right? Which causes
We're talking about the immune system now.
No, we're talking about an actual military operation, which neither of us are in charge of. But the point is, if every tank that is yours is putting out a signal that is, heavily encrypted, so the enemy can't put out that signal itself, then you could prevent the targeting of those things. But to the extent that the enemy figures out how to do this, right, gets access to the code and creates a transponder of its own, then the point is that's a loophole for anything that they can put that transponder on.
Wait, is this all like a way to circle back to Codecracker, our new superhero?
You think, no. I don't have a pun. I'm working on it all the time, but I don't have one. But anyway, point is that IgG4 thing suggests another mechanism that might be causing us to see an uptick in these pathogens. So anyway, that's three different things that all point in the same direction and make it hard for us to know which, if any of these things, or possibly all of them, are in play.